He sipped at a weak hock and seltzer as he gazed at the London skies through the Nottingham lace of the curtains, or was it his bees-winged eyes? Welcome to the Building Sheriffs. My name is Paul Puccioni, and otherwise known as Pooch, and with me is my old mucker, old Chris E.W. Jowett. Today we are going to be we're going to give a tutorial about how to put shelves up. Yes, so your husband or your wife attempting it, they'll be able to listen step by step and have shelves that are up for life. First, looking at me askance because of what I said at the beginning is old E.W. How are you, Chris?
Well, I'm baffled, to say the least. What was that nonsense about?
That nonsense was the arrest of Oscar Wilde at the Cadogan Hotel by Sir John Betjeman. And I said it for a reason.
What, Sir John Betjeman arrested Oscar Wilde?
Very funny. Because you're a party to this story, but you don't realise. I was coming up... No, in fact, you're not. You're not. It's when I went up last week to get my daughter a car, her 17th birthday. Do you remember I said I went up to Loughborough? And I had to go from St Pancras Hotel, and I had a bit of time to spare beforehand, and so I wandered around and had a sandwich and just watched the world go by. There is a statue of John Betjeman, and he's a portly figure wearing this big hat, looking up at the sky with an umbrella. And I was standing looking at it, and there were these three women there. One was taking a photo, and the other two were doing the Betjeman pose, looking up at the sky. And it's a reference to a Betjeman poem anyway. And this woman said, right, that's it. No, arm up a bit. He goes, yeah, just look gormless like him. And,
now I get the relevance.
Yeah, it just said so much to me that there's people there dressed dressed in their whatever, with their smartphones, not knowing who on earth he was, just thinking he was a gormless man. A bit of irony there, Chris.
Yes, well, as you know, I use the word gormless as often as possible. It's one of my favourite words, Pooch.
It is, but I thought that was quite a nice little story.
Yes, well, neither of the two gentlemen, are the arrestor or the arrestee, were even remotely gormless, I wouldn't imagine. No. Oscar Wilde being one of the finest repartees on the planet.
Yes, and John Betjeman was no slouch. I remember in an interview in the late 70s, he was talking about his poetry and his work. He described himself as a hack. He didn't think he was particularly great, despite the fact he was a poet laureate and was an absolutely incredible poet. Come rain down on us, German bombs in Slough, all of that kind of thing. Quite cutting edge.
I wouldn't know a John Betjeman poem if I fell over it, mate.
He kind of wrote about the humdrum of British life and made it very interesting and insightful. And he hated all of the work that had been the council houses in Slough and thought they looked awful, and he was beckoning the German bombs in to get rid of them.
Was he now?
So he
used to hang people for that. Good God, man!
Yeah, I know. So yeah,
what about Lord Haw-Haw? Really? Was Betjeman?
Yeah, here we go, Chris. I've got it here. He said, "Come, friendly bombs, and fall on Slough. It isn't fit for humans now. There isn't grass to graze a cow. Swarm over, death." I know, it's quite interesting. But anyway, in this interview, they said, any regrets? And he paused and he goes, yes, just one. He said, I didn't have enough sex.
I'm wondering if I could... I'd probably state that I didn't have enough holidays.
Would you?
Yeah, well,
yes.
Holidays are much better than sex, aren't they? For God's sake, they certainly last a lot longer. Yeah, well, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can't have a holiday whilst you're having sex.
No, you cannot. No, but you can certainly do the opposite. Yeah.
Right, a real quickie before we get into the subject of putting up shelves, nonsense and ramblings. Now, the viewers will have heard, because we are about 10, 12 podcasts ahead with our recordings. They'll have heard an episode about builders labourers. And in that, I told a little story about how I went to Kingston with my daughter and getting my phone repaired. And whilst I was waiting for it, I saw this jacket. And my daughter said, yeah, that's a great jacket. It was 40 quid off. I bought it. When I got back to my car, I had a 40 quid parking ticket. And I laid down a challenge to my wife not to mention it when she listened to the podcast. And she has listened to the podcast, Chris.
And she has failed, I imagine.
Well, in fact, she didn't fail, and because my thing, I was going to give her a steak meal guaranteed on our wedding anniversary. That was the reward, and she didn't fail. But typical of my wife, never to big me up, other than saying she likes our podcast. She said, "Oh right, okay, was that the day?" She goes, "No, you don't look very good in that jacket."
The Pooch. She also doesn't big you up for another reason, mate.
Because I'm an idiot.
There's absolutely no reason ever. You've never done a thing in your damn life to warrant being bigged up, for God's sake.
No, of course, but nor have lots of people, and surely that's the art of management. I've worked with people, and you think, oh, you know, even on a building site, you say, oh, good job, mate, there, blah blah blah, and they then do a better job. And bigging up is a process as opposed to a one-time thing, as far as I see, anyway.
Yeah, so it's an ongoing process of lying your head off to somebody in order to get a bit more work out of the bugger.
Yes, does my arse look big in this? No, of course not.
No, a better one for that would be does my arse make... No, do these trousers make my arse look big? Well, no.
Yes,
it's the meat pies that make your arse look big.
It ate the trousers. Well, this is the first time we've done a podcast for a little while, Chris, because we have been working on a new exciting development of the Building Sheriff, which we can come to in due course. And also, you and I had a fabulous trip up to York, where we did our first Building Sheriffs Live.
We did, yeah. I enjoyed it immensely. Mainly because we spent 70 odd quid on a nice lunch and a few beers. That was instrumental in my enjoyment. But you know, it was nice to just have a different medium. You know, because having a camera pointed at you puts a little bit of an edge on what you do.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and it makes you perform. Funnily enough, I was with. So I know you know a mate of mine is Kid Jensen, the DJ, and Kid's at a new station. And it's an internet station that's just been started. It's got Mike Reed and loads of the old DJs, Graham Dean, and Kid had just been doing a pre-recorded show, and he said, "I hate doing pre-recorded shows." He said they take twice as long. He said because you're not live, there's no edge. When you're live, your brain works faster and better, and you just get it right.
Yeah, really, yeah, so, indeed. There's an interesting thing that came out of what you just said then. You called him Kid.
Yeah.
See, when you're with... I've never met Kid Jensen, but when you're talking to Kid Jensen, you call him Kid. Was he christened Kid?
David Kid Jensen, and he was Kid because he was over here 50 years ago when he was like 17.
I remember him coming over and him being Kid.
Yeah, and his wife calls him Kid.
Really? Bit like gummies, a bit like
Debbie with gum.
Yeah. All right, so I just thought his name was Derek, and I don't know.
Derek, David.
I don't know what film stars are called who've got made up names. Do they actually have their? No. Are they so? Do they require the made up name to be used, or do they? I mean, I wonder if John Wayne was called Marion.
Yeah, and Cary Grant, Archibald. Yeah. I don't think so. All right, Archie. Well, maybe. I mean, I'm sure David Furnish occasionally, ironically, refers to Elton as Reg.
I wonder. Yes, I wonder what sort of moments. Can I use the? Can I? As you just brought that up, can I refer to the funniest headline in the Sun I've ever seen in my life? Well, when they got married, the headline in the Sun was. Elton takes David up the aisle. Now I'm just repeating what the Sun said. So you can't rub that out, mate. You can't. You got to leave that in.
Okay, and I'll go to the risk of sounding. No, I will. I was going to say my favourite newspaper headline on the back of the Telegraph, but no, it's let me tell you, it was when what's her name? That young Zola girl.
Zola Budd, yeah, when she fell over.
Had raced Mary Decker-Slaney, and Zola fell over, didn't she? And at the end of the race, Zola was crying, and Zola Budd was crying. And the next day, the Telegraph headline was Zola, J'accuse.
Ah, yes.
And it was a reference to the Dreyfus case when Émile Zola had written, there was an anti-Semitic thing in France in the 1890s, and Émile Zola, obviously the preeminent author of the time, had written a paper called J'accuse. And how clever is the guy to have, come up with that? And I wonder how many people got it.
Well, I wonder how many people would have got it if that had been the Sun headline.
So, Chris, I think it is loads of ramblings. It's time for us to move on to our subject. Welcome back to the Building Sheriffs, www.buildingsheriff.com. No matter how many times I say that, I fall over how many W's we need. I think we're just going to dispense with the W's once and for all, Chris. What's
that creaking noise, Pete? Is it?
Oh, well, it's a really sunny day, Chris, and my studio isn't air conditioned.
Not many sheds are, mate.
And the sun is beating down, and so it's really hot inside, and so I keep the studio door closed. But then I need to get a bit of fresh air, so I open the studio door, but the sun is beaming in on me, and I suddenly overheat. So apologies for the creaking of the studio door.
Apology accepted, mate. Not that you need to apologise to me. Actually, I knew what it was. I just wanted you to mention the fact that you spend your life in a shed. Because bear in mind, Punter, even though you can't see us, we can see each other. And it no matter how many times he uses the word studio, he's just a self-delusionary arse. He's in a bloody shed.
Do you know, but it is, well, a man or a woman, whoever, or a granddad or a grandmother, you've got to have a shed. And when I'm in here, Chris, it's a free zone. No one can call me. They know I'm doing a podcast. I could come in here and just, flick through the paper, but no one will disturb me. It's fantastic.
They might do with the door wide open, Pooch. Anyway, carry on, mate. Carry on.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so putting up shelves, Chris. Now, this is something that, when you know how to do it, is incredibly easy, hence the hilarity in the building trade when punters try to do it, and often someone will come around and say, can you put that shelf up? And you go in and there's a shelf hanging off the wall and with the wall plug sticking out, and hubby has had a go at it and made an absolute pig's ear of it. Often it's the lack of having the right tools.
Absolutely, mate. How many times have you've seen a bloke's tools? He's got a Black & Decker that his granny gave his dad in 1961. Yep. One drill bit, and some of those red plastic plugs, which might take a 4 diameter screw, and that's about it, mate. Yeah, shocking. Yeah, shocking tools.
And his orange hammer, of course, from Wickspace.
Yes.
Yes, and that's the point, Chris. So I think they would do a lot better if they had the right tools, but I don't think they would quite get there, because there are a few little tips that people don't consider. So I think we're going to this is going to be a tutorial, okay? So let's start. So you're putting a shelf up. What are the first things you have?
You're putting one shelf up, okay, somewhere.
Yep.
And is this shelf, where's it going? Is it going on a completely flat wall, and it's going to stick out from a wall, or is it going between the chimney breast and a wall, for instance?
Okay, no, it's a very simple thing. It's a shelf that is going up. It can be one of those IKEA shelves, or it can be one of those ones with that routed edge that we all used to get from Homebase, and it's going on a brick and plaster internal wall, and there's nothing else there.
Right.
So basically you're drilling into the wall and you're putting 4 screws in.
Yeah. Well, the first thing you do is get your wife to stand behind you and tell you exactly where she wants it, because it will be her that's told you to put the shelf up, and so you make sure that she says, I want it there. You put a pencil line on, and then you turn round to your lawyer and you hand her the piece of paper which she has to sign, affidavit-wise, whatever that silly word is, to state categorically that is where she actually wanted it. And
that may sound like a jest, viewers, but when Chris and I will be on site putting anything up, we make sure the customer puts a mark exactly where they want it. Nowadays we'll take a photograph, because if you're putting a TV up on a wall, a flat screen TV, and they come in afterwards and go, oh, it looks a bit low, you'll point to the little mark there and little arrow behind it and say, well, that's where you said, because you're right, Chris. Okay, brilliant. So step one, we know exactly where it's going.
Yeah. So we need. Well, you need to have gone to Wixby Q and bought the shelf and its two brackets.
Yes.
And so you need then to have the fixings to put, because you do is,
can I chip in? Can I chip in here?
Mate?
I think number two, Chris, you throw away any screws or fixings that come. Oh, go on, mate.
No, carry on, mate. No.
No. All yours.
You throw away all those ludicrously half-inch screws that they might work if you wanted to attach a feather to the wall, but I suspect they wouldn't. Throw those a long way away and go out and get some 10-inch Manley screws from Burt Screws R Us.
Okay, so this is a bit of a minefield for people. Raw plugs. There's yellow ones and red ones and brown ones usually in the trade. And they are colour-coded according to their diameter. So a yellow one will be a 5 millimeter drill bit you require. A red one is a 6 mil, and a brown one is a 7 mil. I would say go with the middle one. Go with the red plug. Get yourself some red plugs. And if you haven't got one, you need a 6 millimeter masonry drill bit.
You do. And you want a drill that will actually take the drill bit and deliver enough power to actually send that drill bit into the wall.
And this will be a hammer drill, won't it, Chris?
It needs to be a hammer drill? Yes, indeed. Yeah. So what do you do then? Well, you either...
Sorry, with the selection. With the selection. Okay, so your fixings were still at Wixby Q base. You need to have a set of screws that will fix... I tend to like 2 or 2.5 inch screws. Let's go 2.5 inch 10s.
They'll never get them in, mate. They'll never get them in, will they?
Into what?
Into the wall. They'll never drill the hole far enough into the wall, and they'll.
Well, you're about to tell them how.
Well, you use a big enough drill bit, and a long enough drill bit, and a powerful enough drill. But I personally wouldn't use those red, orange, or green things.
Go on then.
Because they're plastic. I get nylon plugs. And they're about, well, they take 10 mil bits, 8 mil and 6 mil. I think I can't remember, to be honest, because it's just like riding a bike,
Yeah, sure. You just do it.
I could do it with my eyes closed, so I don't bother looking at them. I use nylon screw drill bits. Nylon plugs. and I certainly would use a masonry drill bit in a decent drill, because look at it this way. If you're putting up a lot of shelves, you're saving yourself 80 quid in labour. So you could go out and buy yourself an 80 quid drill, and you'd be just as well off, and you'll end up with a proper drill at the end of the job.
Okay, so we've got our fixings, and we've got our shelf. We know where it's going, and the next stage, we've got our drill, and we've probably got a cordless drill as well. We put our 6 mil drill bit into the drill. Do we mark where our holes are, but you can't just mark those randomly, can we?
No.
We need another. We need a level.
You need a level, but what you also need to do is put the shelf on the floor upside down or whatever, and put the brackets on top of it, so that pretending where they're going to go, relevant to the length of the shelf. Because if your shelf's 3 foot long, you don't want to put them an inch in from each end, because the shelf's going to bow. You've got to take an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Depending upon the thickness of the timber of the shelf, because if it's very, very thin, you need more than 2 brackets for a start. And then, so you work that out, and you work out just where in from the edge each bracket's going to be. You know where your shelf is on the wall because you've already marked the line, ideally with a little end mark, so you know exactly where it is. And then you come in and you put your bracket on the wall. The shelf's still on the floor. The bracket goes on the wall, and you hold it against the line, and you mark with a pencil through the holes in the bracket, and that's your first 2. And I would then turn those little pencil marks into tiny crosses, and then I would drill those 2 holes, if it is 2, put the bracket in the wall, and secure that one on the wall properly.
Will such a shelf hold the weight of something like a some idiot who has won the Bristol's Strongest Schoolboy competition trophy.
What do you mean? Do you mean to him? He hanging off the shelf?
No. The weight of the trophy. The trophy. I imagine it's quite impressive.
The trophy's plastic, Pooch. And
imagine if you're talking about not being bigged up by my wife. Imagine if all I'd ever done in my life, and that my only story was to have won Bristol's Strongest Schoolboy, which obviously not every schoolboy in Bristol entered, just your class did.
Oh no, there was more than my class. In fact, 1A joined in as well.
1A. Yeah, they were younger than you. Yeah, they were the young ones. They were nearly a year younger, weren't they? You're a September baby.
Yes, yeah. That's about the long and short of it.
It is. I always think that's so unfair, don't you? When you're playing rugby and there are the best kids are born in September, and then they're playing against kids who are born in August, and they're a year older than them, and that is a massive difference, isn't it?
Two things. One, it isn't unfair if you happen to be one of the September kids, and two, it just teaches the little ones a bit more about how unfair life is, Pooch.
Yeah, exactly. It teaches the little ones never to play rugby again, poor little buggers.
Once they stop crying.
Do you know, I learnt a lesson that I never have forgotten from my rugby teacher. It was the first week, and we were first formers, and we had to get a bus in those days to our sports ground, which is in Hampton Court, from the schools in Kingston. And we get a coach there and a bus home. We're all there, and someone had done something wrong during the first rugby lesson. And at the end, our teacher, Dave Morris, got everyone round. And he said, right. He said, who did that? And no one said anything. We're all petrified, little 11-year-olds. He goes, come on, who did that? No one said anything. He said, right, you're going to tell me who did that, or you're all staying for an hour afterwards. And everyone started to go, oh no. And one little kid put his hand up and said, oh, sir, it was so-and-so, obviously referring to him by his surname. It was Marshall, sir. It was Marshall. Dave went, oh, okay. And this guy was 6'4", England B, number 8, a huge northern guy. And he walked over to young Marshall, looked at him, and then he walked over to the kid who had piped up, whacked him on the back of the head, and he said, don't snitch on your mates. And he said, right, and that kid had to stay an hour after, and we all went, even Marshall.
What a
brilliant lesson, isn't it?
What a wonderful piece of rough justice that was, wasn't it?
What a man, eh? Yeah, what a man. And there are gym teachers like that around the country and around the world. Well, you know from your teaching days.
It is interesting. I'm 15 years older than you, and if you said to me, what was the name of your games teacher when you were 11, I'd tell you Roy Edwards immediately. You never forget the man, did you? You knew that man's name. You didn't have to think about it.
No, of course. Okay, so we have got our right. So a little tip here when you're drilling into the wall, viewers. I would say what you need to do is you need to drill it. If you think you've got your screw length, let's say it's 2.5 inches. Let's say it's 2 inches for the sake of argument. Now you've got 2 inches plus the 3 or 4 mil bit of your bracket, or if it's timber or whatever. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to drill too deep into the wall. Otherwise, your plug will get lost. So I would recommend laying your screw, I know this sounds ludicrous, Chris, laying your screw next to your drill bit and putting a bit of tape around the drill bit, just maybe 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, further, longer than the screw, so that when you drill, you have a gauge, a depth gauge.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, because what you don't want to do, because sometimes for whatever reason, you have to hammer the roll plug in. And
well, I would recommend you always do that. That's the next tip.
Well, and so it never comes out again. There is a way to get it out, but if you haven't drilled far enough, and you think you've got 1/4 of an inch sticking out, and you've then got to start cutting it away with a Stanley knife, which tends to either cut the end of your finger off or ruin the wall. So make sure your hole's long enough. That's very important.
Yes. And then what you do is you push the raw plug into the wall with your thumb. It will be flush. And then you take your screw and you take your hammer and you tap, 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 tap until it's gone home, till it's all the way in. And then you offer your shelf bracket, put your screw through that, and then carefully drill through. You'll feel it bite, and then you wind it up until it's nice and tight.
Then you put the other one in. That's one bracket up.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
the bracket has to be. It isn't just the horizontality of it all.
Yes, which is level,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
And then
Yeah,
plumb.
The bracket has to be plumb, and the shelf has to be level. It's no use getting the shelf level if the brackets aren't plumb. They're skew, and that's more difficult because the bracket's only 6 inches from top to bottom. So if you're using a 3 foot long level, it's quite difficult. So you need a selection of levels now.
Yes, a little boat level.
Yeah.
You could probably pick up a little boat level for about, I don't know, £4 or £5, and that's you're right. So from just having your daft little granny's or granddad's drill, you now need a new drill, you need a new cordless, you need a new drill bit, you need a set of expensive screws, you need some plugs, you need a level for leveling, and a little boat level for
And your
plumbing.
orange hammer.
And your orange hammer. You have to have your orange hammer. Do you know why I mention it, Chris? I mean, it is so funny, and I don't know if any of you punters out there have seen this happen. Particularly, you love the wives out there when the builders turn up to work and a gang of builders traipse into your house. There's that word, Chris, with their muddy boots, traipse in and have a cup of tea and then start working. If your husband is off work, occasionally you will find that he does a job that you wanted him to do, and he starts either putting up a shelf or doing this and doing that, and he'll bring out his orange screwdrivers and his orange hammer, which is half the size of our hammer, and our hammers are Estwing hammers that will last a lifetime and were very expensive, and he'll start doing a job. And we all snigger because we know damn well he is trying to assert a modicum of masculinity, isn't he, in the face of four testosterone-soaked, boot-clad builders.
Yes, and if his hammer has a motif on it, it'll be Bob the Builder or something.
I know. Something his kids bought him that he thought was lovely and we would like, but you and I would never, ever get out and use, would we?
No way, mate. No way. Anyway,
Where were we? Would
well, I'm back to the shelf, mate. I'm in full. I'm in full
go on
flow
then.
here. So you got.
I tell you what, I've got a really good idea. Let's just try this. Let's swap roles. Why don't you be the host of the show for the next 5 minutes? Come on, just try. Come on.
Okay,
Go on.
Poochie. What do we do next?
Come on.
I can't do it, Pooch. I'm entrenched in my role of being the knob, and I'm more than happy with that role. And
I thought I was the knob.
all right. I'm the second knob then. You're knob one.
Okay.
I'm knob two. I'm entrenched
Right.
in my role as knob two and cannot. I just got no concept whatsoever of how to be knob one.
All right, off you go then. All right, well, say what you're going to say as knob two.
Well, I can put the shelf on top of the bracket now, and I'm
Okay.
And at that and then take the other bracket, put it at exactly the right place on the wall, and underneath the shelf. So now you've got one bracket on the wall holding the shelf up, another bracket on the wall which you're holding up with your fingers, and which is also holding the shelf up, but you can move about, and then you put your level your level on the top, and you get the shelf level, and then you make sure that the brackets vertical. How quite you do that? I just do it by eye because I've got the eye of a brain surgeon when it comes to when it comes to plumb, and I just mark the first hole. Okay, that's all. Maybe just mark the first hole. Take it all away, put a little cross on and drill that one hole and fix the bracket on with just one hole, okay? Yep. So then you put it back. This is it's a bit tenuous, but then you put your shelf back on. Both brackets are on the wall, and then you can manoeuvre the bottom of the bracket, which has only got one screw in it, until that bracket is now plumb. Mark that, diddly-dee, move it aside, drill that hole, diddly-dee, diddly-da. In your screws, you now got two brackets on the wall. Put the shelf back on. It's level, and you can screw the shelf to the brackets.
For a moment, I thought that I was watching Parkinson with Peter Ustinov.
Did he move his hands a lot?
Yeah. No. Just the story. It's just compelling.
Was it?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Blimey. Yeah. So then what happened? Oh, really? Yeah. No, what you made one point there, Chris, which I thought was very good and really, really useful. If you put that top screw in, as Chris said, the bracket will be hanging down, and you don't then drill through the hole in the bracket and then through the wall. Just move it to the side and you'll have your mark there, and then move it back into place and screw it in. So that is a very good tip. Even Sir Peter Ustinov, if he imparted that to Parky might think, oh, that's good. I'll use that.
Do you reckon Peter Ustinov ever put shelves out?
No, but I know what he did do that most people don't know he did. If you ever go to the Forbidden City in Beijing and do the tour, they have an audio walking tour. So it's just off Tiananmen Square, and wander into the Forbidden City and you pay your money and you get a headset. Or back in the day, it was with a cassette player, and you can you choose your language and they give you the appropriate cassette. The English is narrated by Peter Ustinov.
Yes, of course it is. Who better?
Yeah, but how did they do the deal back in 89, 90? I mean, this is, just post Tiananmen Square. So he'd obviously done it before, and Peter Ustinov will have, who brokered that deal to get Ustinov making the audio tape in for the Chinese government, basically.
Yes,
so
yes. I don't know, Pooch. I really do not know. No.
Yeah. Right, so your shelf is up there.
Yeah, your shelf's up now. Job done.
That's that. I think we've covered putting a shelf up. I think that you'll be a miracle worker if you can follow these instructions and get a shelf up without it falling down. But there is method to what we've said, and it works fine for us, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Chris?
it does. Yeah. I don't know, but when was the last time you put a shelf up as part of a job?
Right. So I think it's time for us to move on to. You say it. Go on. No, go on. You do the link.
Do the link?
Yeah, go
on. Is it question time, Pooch?
No, you can't say it as a. You got to say it as a statement.
God, I hate this. I really hate you. You've discovered my Achilles tendon, haven't you? I knew that.
I know. Do you know why he had an Achilles heel?
Why did Achilles have an Achilles heel?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, he was a man, so he would have one anyway. But his Achilles, it was the only part of his armour, the only part of his body that wasn't encased in armour, wasn't it?
It was when he, his mother, when he was born, and I can't remember his mother's name. I'm just going to quickly look that up because it's interesting for the story. But basically, she took him down to the underworld. And there's, depending on Greek or Roman mythology, there's the river Styx or the river Karen that crosses over to the underworld. Well, what happened is it was the river Styx, yeah, and his mum took him down, and Thetis, she took him down, and anyone who goes into that river becomes invulnerable. And she dipped him into the river. Yes, and she held him by the heel.
Wonderful story.
Open with that on Parky?
Yes, mate. That's a great story, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, there is another part of his anatomy she could have held him by, I suppose.
Trust you to bring it down to. Anyway, look, there's time. Let's do. You should realise you've said something a little bawdy and quickly move on and do the.
Oh
link.
Yes, it's time for the quiz. I do not the quiz. No, time for what are they called? What's it called when everyone's on the internet, Facebooking each other? It's time to.
Right, everybody, it's time for questions.
I knew the word questions. It's social media questions. That was the phrase, social media.
Okay, Chris, welcome back to the Building Sheriffs viewers. It's question time now, and we, as usual, go through a question from our email, and then Twitter, and then to Facebook. And first on email is Monica in Bristol, and she asks, my sash windows have been painted shut. They are stuck, and I would like to open them. Is this possible?
Is it possible? It is, but it's likely to be a trifle expensive, Monica, I'm afraid. Sometimes it requires the whole window to be taken apart, the weights, because once you start, you don't do half a job. Are you going to carry on and do the proper job? You might just, all right, you may be able to take a Stanley knife, cut round at the inside of the windows, bash them with a hammer a little bit, and then they'll actually open. But then you'll have look pretty horrible, won't it? So then you think, well, it depends whether you want a proper job or not, Monica.
Right, Monica, I agree with Chris. You can, and then we're getting into sash window refurbishment, but maybe don't use a Stanley knife. Maybe get yourself a decorator's filling knife or a scraper, and then which like a 3-inch blade, and then just put that into the gap and then tap it very lightly all the way around, and that tends to free them up. I mean, if they've been painted shut over the past 30, 40 years, you're in trouble. But if it's just, a recent painting and that you've painted them and they've got stuck, which they always do, don't they, Chris? Because gloss dry, that could be it. So yes, that is possible. Right, we are moving on to Twitter. And Chris, guess what's trending? Yes, you know. What?
That marriage, possibly, Pooch.
Yeah, the royal wedding, yes.
Marriage, yeah. I didn't see any of it yesterday. Not a thing. No, I was doing a survey in Harrogate, which took me 3 hours, and very conveniently, those 3 hours were the exact 3 hours the wedding took place, Pooch. But when I came back, my lovely wife gave me a quarter of an hour fill-in of the whole process.
Okay, so give me a very short précis of what she said.
Well, she said that she cried most of the way through it. She picked up on how fabulous what's her name's dress was, and how brave the mother was, and how very touching the two people were looking at each other. How they were so deeply and beautifully in love, which you would expect from two people getting married, and about the black guy who gave the sermon, and the black and the fabulous black choir that sang something or other,
I mean, you probably wanted more details about the open bateau neckline of Meghan's dress.
She did mention that it was a boat line. Yes, she did.
And did she say 3/4 length sleeves?
No, she didn't go into too much detail regarding the frock because my eyes would have glazed over long before that she really got into the details of it. Yeah.
Well, I have a description here, Chris. Let's see if your eyes glaze over. The bride's unembellished dress featured an open bateau neckline. Listen. A sculpted waist and slim 3/4 sleeves, which added a note of refined modernity. Meghan's dress also incorporated a 5-metre-long train. That's over 15 feet, which flowed in soft round folds, cushioned by an underskirt in triple organza.
You sound as though you got some sort of idea about what any of that meant. What the hell is organza for a start?
I don't know. I reckon it's like a petticoat.
Is it so? Organza is another name for a petticoat, or is organza a fabric?
Oh no, I reckon it's a petticoat. It must be a petticoat.
Well, I don't.
Oh no, it's a fabric.
I don't know.
A petticoat made. I don't know. Look, I'll discuss it with the boys on site on Monday, and I'll get some answers. I'll ask Glenn Alden.
I remember the last royal wedding. And there were certain discussions about a young woman at the last royal wedding. Do you remember? And it wasn't
Pippa's posterior.
It wasn't the bride, was it? No.
Yeah, she was pregnant.
Oh,
yes.
Well, Pippa is pregnant.
Yes.
Whatever. Yeah.
Joe said to me, because I watched it round at friends. I was helping them out. I just did a little job for them, and it happened to be on. So I know her husband, and we sat down and we were watching it, and it was very nice. It was nice, and I like the sense of occasion. I like the sense of everyone doing something at the same time nationwide. This kind of communality. Yeah. You don't get it anymore. We don't all watch Play for Today on a Monday at the same time and discuss it the next day, do we? Did you see Abigail's party yesterday? All that kind of stuff.
We all watched the cup final at 5 o'clock, though, didn't we?
Yes. Well, I
did.
I didn't. I didn't. I was driving down to my Blues Awards with Kit Jensen.
Oh yes, really. Well,
yes.
Then you, Pooch, obviously you know the score, and I suspect you're a very happy bunny that you weren't watching it.
Oh well, I don't mind. I sent a congratulatory note to Gunn, who is a Chelsea fan, and I said, "Good on you, and well done, mate. You can't win them all." So, yes, we were watching it, and it kind of sucked me in. It was nice, and then all these people they kept showing close-ups of people, and I was going, "Who's she? Who's he? Who's she?" And I didn't know. I knew David Beckham, and I knew George Clooney. That's
about that. And you recognise the Queen, probably, didn't you?
Yes, but Joe said to me, she was talking about the girls, who did you think looked nice? I said, well, I said George Clooney. He did. He looked lovely.
George Clooney is a very, very handsome man. You've got to admit.
Yeah, he was wearing this lovely light grey suit, and he looked fantastic. So yes. Anyway, on to our Twitter question.
Yep.
Yeah, at Dave Rogers 39 asks, I have just made some MDF shelves, and the front edge when I paint it has come all ridgy, all puckered. And is there anything I can do about this?
Well, you should have sandpapered it before you painted it, matey. That's about all you can do. Or you could put a bit of, a bit of beading on the front, I suppose, which is just
beading. Yes,
this is a bit of staff beading or something.
So what we're describing here is the edge. MDF is very, very smooth material, but when it's cut, the edge, because it's a composite material, it kind of puckers up and like a grain raises when you paint it. Yeah, it is fibrous, exactly. So I would say, yes, Chris, you're right. Sand down in between coats and keep sanding. The paint will fill it. Keep sanding. Yeah. But that's a horrible job, isn't it? Painting MDF.
Painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're out of luck, mate. You did it. You should have sanded it properly first of all, and probably if you cut it, it's probably like a dog's back leg anyway. So no amount of sand is going to get those kinks and notches out of it. Oh, is it? No.
Yes. Okay, so we are moving on to Facebook. I know I've got to ask, because the first thing, I'm going to ask what your Facebook status is. Do you know because it happened today. We woke up, it's Sunday morning, and the first thing Jo does is gets her phone and taps away, and she half closes her eyes because she hasn't got her glasses on, and she wants to see what everyone's been up to on Facebook.
Everyone being all her friends?
Yeah.
Right. Well, on Sunday morning, oh, I see, right.
So what they've done the night before, and basically, no, I think I've noticed no one says, taps on Facebook, puts on Facebook, had a massive row with my husband yesterday, I hate him. Or we went for a meal, it was horrible. It's all fabulous.
So everybody except you is having a fabulous existence.
Yes, and photos of where they've been and what they've been doing and what they've been eating. And actually, was it Gummy or Joe put me onto this comedian? He was great, and he was talking about social media nowadays, how people post pictures of what they ate. And he said, imagine 30 years ago, you get a letter envelope through the door and open it, and there's a picture there and a note from your mate saying, "This is the fettuccine Alfredo that I ate yesterday."
This is the pie and chips I munched through yesterday afternoon. Yeah, yes, indeed. So you would never do that, would you? So why now show somebody a plate of dinner, for God's sake?
A plate of dinner. I like it. Right. Okay. So let's move on to our Facebook question. 1 second. Samuel in Leeds, and he says, I am redecorating my sitting room and I want to line the ceiling. Now, I need to remove the pendant so that I can line over that. How do I do this?
Well, yeah, first of all, Sam, you're legally allowed to, which is good news.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So the very first thing you must do, obviously, is cut. I'm assuming you've got a tiny little rose on the ceiling, a plastic rose.
Box standard pendants.
And the pendants hanging from it, yeah. So you go to your fuse box. If you're lucky, you've got MCBs, and you flick hopefully it says this is your living room ceiling lamp, Johnny, and you flick that one down to cut the.
It'll say downstairs lights.
If you're doing it downstairs. Yeah, you flick that one down, that turns your power off. And just go and check the light as well to make sure the damn thing, isn't mislabeled. So your power's off. Go to the plastic thingy, unscrew it, pull it down a bit, and you're looking at all the plastic inside with the two lamps. Yes, of course. If it's a loop-in system, then you'll have two cables, three cables, because there'll be a switch as well, won't there? And this is where Johnny's going to start getting confused, isn't he?
Well, firstly, Chris, I would say you said at the beginning he's legally allowed to do it. I think it'd be better if he was legally not allowed to do it, because Sam, I would say, mate, just try really hard not to touch any cabling. And I think that the easiest thing here to do, Chris, is to throw the power, as you said, and to then just remove the pendant coming down. Just unscrew your blue and your brown cables and your earth. So that just takes the cable off, and then you have a sealing rose the bottom with all the cables loop in, loop out going there, and just cut around it.
See, but if you cut around it, Pooch, that cut's going to show, isn't it? It's always going to show.
Yeah.
If it was me, I'd take the whole thing off. But then, you see, I'd then pull the cables down a bit, mark them in, power in, power out, and switch. Because you've got 3 cables, of which each one's got 3 cables internally, a live, a neutral, and an earth. And those 3 have to be correctly wired up again afterwards. And you won't remember it, and you can't go labelling it all because, it is a bit of a problem,
Chris,
isn't it?
You're part P qualified, so I think that when it comes to electrics, our line here is leave well alone, get a bloke in, and unfortunately, if you think about it, it's going to cost you 60 quid for a guy to come in and do that. But what price? Safety. If you're up your aluminium step ladder and you get a whack off that and you fall off and you smash your head, I hate to look at the worst case scenario, but it'll happen, Chris, because people will not have a clue. So I'm putting my foot down here, mate. Sam, don't touch it. If you've got to ask, you don't know.
And also, you've just saved yourself 80 quid in the labour to line your ceiling. So you're still quids in, mate. You're still quids in. And if you're clever, you could watch what the Sparks does and maybe make a few notes, possibly. Can I have a concession on that one, Pooch? No? All right, fair dues.
No, because he won't have a clue. He won't know what a switch live is, a loop, and blah, blah, blah. He won't have a clue. So, yes. So, Sam, just get a man in or a woman in, anyone who's qualified, competent person, and leave well alone, and you go and sit and have a cup of tea whilst they do their job, and then you get back to your lining, which will look rubbish, by the way.
We haven't even got to that bit, have we?
Oh, I'd love to go around and see poor Sam lining his ceiling when it all falls down on his head. Which, Sam, that I'm not disrespecting you because it happens to me all the time. If you're going
to line it, let's give a bit of advice about lining. Use 1500 grade, Sam.
Yep.
Nice and thick.
And paste the ceiling as well as the paper.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Right. Well, that's the end of another episode of our Daft podcast. It's now Sunday lunchtime.
It is.
And, Chris, excuse me. Why have you just shown me a piece of paper?
Well, Pooch, I haven't had a moment to say any of this because this is, what about my quiz question, Pooch? My famous international quiz that everyone's tongues out, hanging out, ready to hear the next question on. There hasn't been a moment I could have mentioned it, Pooch.
Chris, I've had a deluge of, I forgot to say this, a deluge of correspondence, Twitter, Facebook, email, asking when the next village quiz is up in Preston-under-Scar because nobody wants to go.
Because
it sounds
the questions
rubbish.
are way too highbrow for you, let alone the average Joe in the street.
What's my score?
It's 5.5. Oh, it's 6 out of 13.
Come on, I'm taking that for an old man's village hall quiz. It's not bad, is it? Right, go on then. Off you go.
All right, this is question 15, Pooch. Okay, this quick-fire American motor pool sergeant had several underlings. One of them shared his surname with a fighting dog. What was this particular underling called?
I thought they were supposed to get harder rather than easier.
Oh, sorry, Pooch. What they're doing is moving forward in time. So you're actually
okay.
You're actually born at this point.
Well, do you know? Actually, I wasn't born, but I saw the reruns, and it's to date one of the funniest, finest TV shows ever. Sergeant Bilko, and it was Doberman, and I always tell the story to kind of encapsulate the comedy of that. Bilko, who, for those of you who don't know, was a motor pool sergeant, and he looked after all the cars at Fort Baxter. And the colonel was this bumbling old fool, but basically Bilko ran Fort Baxter. He was into gambling and all of this kind of stuff. And at one scene, the colonel was walking along, and at this beautiful black sleek car pulled up next to the colonel, and Bilko looked out the window. And the colonel said, he goes, "Oh, Bilko." He goes, "That's a nice car." He said, "Oh, it's your car, sir." He said, "Really?" He goes, "Yes, it's your staff car." He said, oh, he goes, that's weird. I just thought it was yours. I always see you in it. He goes, I just assumed it was yours.
My brother said to me, if I ever get a dog, I've got to call it Bilko. Because the old colonel used to shout at Bilko, and he used to say,
Bilko!
Bilko! Bilko!
Yeah, not bad.
And so if you call your dog Bilko, you can stand out in the street and shout, Bilko!
And the old classic was every time Bilko saw the colonel's wife, he'd go, Colonel, you didn't say your daughter was in town. And she'd fall for it every time, wouldn't she? Brilliant.
Right, who played Bilko?
Phil Silvers.
Good lad.
And he died thinking he was Sergeant Bilko. He got some kind of dementia or whatever, poor thing. But
you could be worse people than Sergeant Bilko, for Christ's sake.
I mean, there aren't many people on TV who are that iconic. I mean, you have Henry Winkler as the Fonz. You know, that you create a character that is so incredible. But yes, and then which cartoon was subsequently based on Sergeant Bilko?
Oh, Top Cat.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah,
that was great. Anyway, right, I'm off to alter the cutting height of my mower because it's cutting too high. And then Joe and I have got to go to Tesco for a big shop.
I fixed my mower the other day. It didn't work anymore. So there's a very complicated switching process where you have to hold two handles while you know.
I know, yeah.
So I took the whole thing out. So the only way you can turn it on now is to turn the mower upside down because it's a hover in the middle of the lawn. Go back to the power in the shed and flick the switch, and 40 foot away, the mower goes mad till you get to it and flip it over and then stop mow. And the only way you can turn it off is by repeating the opposite process.
And we're telling Sam not to touch a ceiling rose.
Yeah, well.
Right. Okay, mate. Well, it's time for me to use my new parting phrase.
You've got a new parting phrase. Let's hear it.
New parting phrase.
Ears, go.
Au revoir, tout le monde. Au revoir.
Why? Why, Pete? Pourquoi? Pourquoi, Monsieur le second-hand dog?
I'm just a bit gutted that everyone keeps writing in saying how much they like your sooty.
But my sooty's good. I'm not emulating some bloody Frenchman or trying to.
Sacha Distel.
You want to do it properly? Do it in Sean, mate, because you can do Sean.
Oh, maybe I'll save that for another day, and we'll have a little Sean off. But let's let the viewers go home and do what they've got to do.
I know, mate. We've been here for a bloody hour or more, haven't we?
I know.
Right.
Oh, by the way, we got on our iTunes ratings. One of the people gave us a 5-star review, and he said it's very good. He said there's one problem: it's not long enough.
Oh, get out of it!
And I did reply, it's not the first time Chris has heard that.
Anyway, on that note,
no, I didn't.
On that note, it's bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. That's it?
Sooty, always in mischief, Sooty. Always the beach, trouble's always brewing. But really, we must be fair. He's the cutest, sweetest, lovable teddy bear.
Okay, Sooty, take it away on the xylophone. Ladies and gentlemen, Sooty.